Welcome to the Marketing B-Sides. I'm your host, Tom Hootman. This is the podcast where we like to say everyone's a marketer and nobody's pretending to have it all figured out. Today's guest is guest number 2. This is the second podcast. We've done this twice. 2 down, thousands to go. Today's guest is another person that I've worked with in a different capacity than our first guest, who I directly reported to and worked alongside for many years. Today's guest is Kent Zimmerman. Kent is a former client of mine twice over. He's hired me twice. He's also fired me twice. And he has an insane amount of experience on the in-house side working for brick and mortar, specifically in the footwear shoe industry. And in honor of Kent, I'm wearing shoes right now. Kent's worked most recently, and where I worked with him, he worked for Shoe Carnival for quite a few years. He also worked for companies like the Finish Line, which back when malls existed and you used to go to the mall and you were probably smoking cigarettes in the mall, you remember Finish Line because that's where you went to buy shoes back before the internet existed. Kent's awesome. There's some fantastic stories in here. What I really wanted to dive into with Kent was a little bit of some of those nuggets from sitting on the other side of the table that I've never sat on when dipshits like me are trying to pitch him to get hired. And we're trying to think of unique ways to stand out when we know he's going to be talking to 4, 6, 8 different agencies. It's a great conversation. I'm excited to unveil this one to you. So have a listen and let's get to work. Awesome. So we're recording. What do you say now? Fuck. How do you even start one of these things off? Anyway, so you're an e-com guy. Brick and mortar.
Sir.
Have you always been in brick and mortar retail? Have you ever done like a straight e-com?
Like from a consulting standpoint, I have, but as an operator, it's brick and mortar. So Finish Line and then Shoe Carnival.
Yeah. When you first got into brick and mortar, were malls already dead, dying?
I think they were. I think they were on their way out, and it's been an incredibly long time ago. It's scary to think back. Like, where were people going? Like around 9/11. So were people going to malls?
No,
Like,
we were already bitching about how malls were dying.
right. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Mall traffic, I think, in the late 90s. Once e-commerce, once Amazon started to be like, hey, people are actually buying things online. I think mall traffic started to its downward spiral, maybe slowly at the time, right? Because it took a while. Even if there's many people have been buying things online for 20 years, that COVID bump happened because people who just would never buy anything online had to buy something on. And they're like, oh, well, this is pretty convenient.
This is easy.
So, yeah, right.
It's interesting too, because we weren't big Door Dashers or Grubhub.
Same.
Yeah. And then COVID hit and it was like, okay, like we need to do something on the weekend that feels like a night out. Like, let's just start doing it.
Sure.
And we did it for like a year. And then you started to realize after like a year and a half, you're like, wait, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is like expensive. And
but it's still like it changed the way that consumers think about how they take delivery of things. So before COVID, you had to do free shipping. Of course, you're not going to pay for shipping. Why would you pay for shipping? And that was a very competitive thing. One of your competitors started doing it, you had to do it. So you had to, spend over a certain threshold to qualify for free shipping. All of a sudden, people realize that you'll spend $7 to get a Taco Bell value meal delivered to you, right?
I've done that. Yes.
Who hasn't done that?
At 3 a.m? Yeah.
1 a.m, 3, sure.
Yeah.
And so as DoorDash has kind of creeped into other non-food categories, I think it's kind of flipped back. It's like, you know what? They're still not going to pay to have something show up 5 days later. But if they want it the next day, or if they want it the same day, they'll pay $10, right?
Yeah.
And all because I think it's all because of COVID. We would have never gotten there. DoorDash would have never been a thing. They would not be as big as they are without COVID.
Well, and they've obviously, like a lot of retail brands, though, they've seen the like it's receded back to a new normal level. So as we have
for sure,
a few retail clients who are still running into normalization, and and you know this as an executive, you want to like hold on to that COVID bump, but like no one can hold on to it because it's people
Yeah.
eventually go back out. DoorDash won't stop sending me shit, mailers, like physical
Oh yeah,
mailers.
for sure.
Please, free, anything you want, we'll bring it to you for free.
Join our reoccurring. Give us that reoccurring revenue, and you'll get whatever off of your next order.
Yeah. And I don't know anyone who did that. I didn't do that. I don't know anyone who like, it was like, this is,
I know people who have like if you're a regular Dasher,
mhm.
DoorDash user, it probably makes sense. But I don't know. Every time I have something DoorDashed, I'm like, what am I doing? Like this is
There's no shame quite like post DoorDash shame. Like someone said, like there's no shame quite like McDonald's eating in your car shame, where you're just like, what did I just do to myself? Like, holy
yeah.
shit. It's fascinating to me because it is a principle built on, and this used to be a thing where back in the day when you ordered a pizza on a like a landline, I had friends who would be like, "Oh, and like tell the driver I'll tip them an extra $3 if they stop and get me a pack of Camel Wide Lights." And it was like an analog version of like, would you act now? DoorDash is like, would you like us to stop at CVS and pick up
Sure.
jujubes and junior
Sure.
mints? Yeah. So you've been in the retail side of like the brick and mortar, the tail end of the mall piece, and then moved into like more of like the strip mall side. You've seen a lot. So like, how long have you been in retail? Like, I don't want you to date yourself, obviously, but I also don't care. So date
Well, I
yourself.
mean, the cat's out of the bag, I think. So, 25 years. So I joined Finish Line in 2000. And I specifically remember like I had some e-commerce experience or what passed for e-commerce at the time, right?
What was that? What passes for econ back then?
I was working for a company at the time called Thompson Consumer Electronics. And I don't know if you remember those guys. They're
It's a Thompson
in
building in Bloomington. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. They had that big Michael Graves building in Carmel that either people thought was really cool or the ugliest building they've ever seen. So I don't know the full history. So at one point, GE bought up all of the RCA brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the late 80s, they bought up RCA and they had GE had their own consumer electronics and there was a ProScan brand. And then at one point, GE decided that the consumer electronics business sucks. There's just no margin in it. There's no margin whatsoever. So they decided to divest. And a French company, Thompson SA, bought them. And they're like, it's crazy. Like they were in the defense business. They were like a $5 billion French company. So they bought them and built that massive building up in Carmel, consolidated all the consumer electronic stuff in that area. So I was working for Thompson and skunk worksing internet stuff, right? Because nobody was doing anything around that space. And so I did a project. We built a website for like small dealers, right? Small, medium-sized dealers. If
Yeah.
you were Circuit City or Best Buy or Sears, you had dedicated, massive dedicated teams. But if you were just, Bob's Electronics in Jasper, Indiana,
This is a very Indiana heavy show, by the way, everyone.
you had you had Effingham, Illinois. Let's just get outside of Indiana. You had no
Just outside.
dedicated sales reps. So everything was like, wow, we can do this stuff online. So we built that and we built an employee website. And then they brought in PricewaterhouseCoopers to do like RCA.com. And that was kind of when I decided to leave because I was like, I don't want to manage big five consulting company. I just don't want to do that. And found my way to Finish Line, right? And they were just trying to figure out how to sell shoes online. And I said, guys, I don't know shit about retail. I mean, the only thing I know about retail is from the manufacturing side with electronics.
You had no shoe experience at that point.
No,
You
absolutely not.
wore them. That's about it.
Everybody wears shoes, right? So I just said no. And they're like, well, we can teach you retail. Retail's easy, right?
As a former retail manager, fuck that. I take umbrage to that statement. Anyway, go on.
The mechanics of retail are
Yeah.
easy, right? We try to turn inventory to cash. So yeah, they're like, we don't know ecom. We don't know the things that we need to do to become a profitable e-commerce business. We don't need and half the board thinks it's bullshit anyway, right?
I still do.
Right. So yeah, so off we went. And I've been doing that ever since.
So around what time, if you can pinpoint, was the first time you had an agency pitch to you? And off the top of your head, how many agency pitches, like conference room, PowerPoint, or I don't know, you're so old, maybe it was a flip chart like down fucking Draper.
No, it was the thing that had the light down. You wrote over transparent.
An overhead projector.
An overhead over.
Yeah, like my 8th grade teacher, Adele Kretschmer. You see, what year was that first like agency pitch?
You know what's funny is the definition of agency, I think then is very different. Like everybody ran performance marketing. Performance marketing wasn't really a thing. It was a thing. Like we obviously were managing Google. There was no social media. There were ads right out there. There was the notion of programmatic, but it wasn't programmatic. You were literally calling like some media property, and ask them if you could spend some money with them to put banner ads on their site. So agencies at that point were kind of like what we'd call systems integrators now, or companies that would helping you do other things other than kind of the marketing side. We ran marketing. We ran our Google in-house. We had a guy who just he ran paid search for us, and SEO was just a thing that was like, what the hell is that? Like, we didn't really know how to manage it at the time. So, but we were getting pitches, we started getting pitches for that side of the business, 2004 or 5, that time frame.
How many pitches you think you've sat in?
I can't remember. Too many. I don't know, 100.
Yeah. And so you've learned that lesson of, you and I have talked about this. Well, you fired me twice, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Kent's actually fired me twice, but joke's all on you because you've hired me twice.
You twice.
So yeah,
but I had to hire you to fire you.
There you go. We've talked about this before, where I just had this conversation with a prospect yesterday when we were in the discovery call, and I said, "Hey, really just my own morbid curiosity, how many agencies are you talking to?" And she was like, 3 or 4. Perfect number. Where you reap what you sow. Like the second you send out an RFP to like fucking 8 agencies, you're like, fuck, that's 8 dinners, 8 pitches. 8, gotta batch the Q&A together. Like, have you've stretched before and been like, what did I do? Because they're like hounds, right?
I don't. Yeah. And you kind of have to go through that. It's one of those things, like after you do it the first time, you realize that it's like, oh, I've got to get to a short list. I've got to somehow get this down to a manageable number, because everyone wants to wine and dine you, right? There's, as you know, there's the pitch, and the pitch is important, but the social aspect of the engagement is almost as important, right?
That's and leading up to it, even now, post this happening, this started because of COVID with Google Meets. Sorry to interrupt you, but with Zoom and Google Meets, the pre-meeting, can we go over our questions in a meeting? Where any FaceTime you can get to build rapport.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's kind of got that same fucking playbook where they're like, we try to get in front of them 3-4 times before we pitch so we can warm up.
Little mini pitches vaguely disguised as discovery. We just want to ask you a few questions.
Just a few questions.
And then peppered throughout all of those questions is, oh, well, we did this for brand X, brand Y.
Well, I think those are the storytelling component is what's kind of like a lot of, it's nature, not nurture. You either have it or you don't. And I think that in those conversations, there are people who pivot really quickly to, funny you bring that up, because feel, felt, found, next question. And you're like,
right.
Smooth.
Cool. Yeah. Great.
So there's a lot of agencies that are very prescriptive about it, where there are others who are legitimately hey, I seriously had someone who did the same thing and it went really well. Anyway, next.
Yeah. Right.
So what's your ideal number? If you're looking at let's say it's a publicly traded company, brick and mortar retail, and they hire you and they say, great, we got to go to RFP.
I think you've always 4. I'll just say 4. 4 is I think no more than 4, because if it's 5, it's what you probably haven't done enough legwork up front to get it down to, I think, a manageable number of responses. You don't want to get yourself in the point where you see so many, you just get recency bias. And so the
Yeah.
last really good one that comes in, you're like, oh, I like them.
You always want to go
I've always,
last for my
yeah,
seat.
right. I've always felt that you need, you're always going to have one that you think's the front runner. Like, oh, I think they'll do the best job. I think they're the right fit for us.
Yeah.
They're probably gonna have one or two that kind of look like them, but maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe like you're always going to have to sell something to the executive board where if it's not the right fit, well, do they have retail? Do they have footwear clients or sell hats? Have they done exactly what we need them to do with the exact same type of client? Right. That makes it easy. You're always going to have those somewhere in the mix, right? Then I think you got to have one in there. It's just like, I really like those guys and they're a long shot,
Wild card, bitches.
but eh, let's just give them a couple hours and see what they can do. Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because from our side, it's always, was that a deal breaker or were they just feeling us out? Right. Like
Right.
there are times, and there's a pitch we had a online EDU pitch, and we had a couple of those clients. This is 2012, 13, and we built a slide with like a map of all the campuses we managed, and it was like, Joe's business and like the other client we had, and we went in and we were like, we manage 48 campuses nationwide, and they
Right.
told us in the pitch, they were like, the other agencies we're talking to like average 200 to 600 campuses nationwide. And we thought we were
Right.
like the shit. And we're like, ooh. So we walk out and we're like, did that kill us? You're always kind of like, did that kill us or not? It didn't end up killing us because some people want you to be closer to the business. And they're like, if you're really great at it and it's all you do, this is why I don't believe in niching down. If it's all you do each and every day, there's an advantage because you have experience, but like at what point does that become myopia where that's all you do every day? You're just kind of washing, rinsing, and
Right.
repeating the same strategies for
Right.
everybody.
I think there's, I mean, yes, you want someone that understands the challenges of your business, right? I don't want to have to explain to them the type of business that we're in and how it's important, but you want somebody who's stretched out and reached out to and done other things for other verticals because they learn things from that, right? And
Yeah.
those things are often applicable to our business. Yeah, and it's I don't think there's any right number. As you know, probably the last meaningful RFP we did, we brought in, some what I thought were pretty heavy hitters. And if that's all we did, we're bringing in those two agencies and say, it's going to be one of these two. We probably would have never picked one because they both mailed it in.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, now what do we do? So
yeah.
I think you have to have a gamut of agencies that don't necessarily look the same.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's in line with feedback I got yesterday in that discovery call was
Good.
like, hey, like it's kind of interesting because you have you got to, it's the differentiator. It has to be natural. It can't be like, it's our people. Everyone says that, or it's our tech, or it's our approach. And it's like, oh shit. Like, so you're saying your team has experience up here and they all kind of like ran to this middle ground because there's like a sweet spot. Yeah. I like that because you can get closer to
Yeah.
the business. The big names might mail it in, or there's the common belief that you get the A team on the pitch and then you never see that team again, which we're all
Right.
aware of. Like we know we
Right.
have to have the team in the room. So there's a thing that at Brain Labs we called it pitch magic. I hope I don't get sued for saying that, but like it's like the something unique for each pitch. Like what's the hook? That's not in the pitch necessarily, but it could be anything from like our connection to the brand to all showing up wearing the brand to like the weird thing that makes them go, wow, that was really creative. Have you ever had any agencies show up? It's difficult with shoes, right? But like I thought about what shoes I was wearing when I'm pitching you. It's like a thought, like shit.
Yeah.
And then I was like, fuck it, I like these shoes better. Because then you overthink it and then you rethink it and you're like, well, if they're not going to pick me because of the shoes I'm wearing, that's weird. But
Yeah.
like, is there anything an agency's done where you were like, no one's ever done that before?
We had and this was Publicis, right? So big agency. And it was a kickoff. So it was not really pitch, but you should 100% steal this for pitches. So they did an icebreaker at the beginning of the meeting.
I
Just
don't like
like,
where it's going.
as it's, yeah,
Okay, keep going. I'll shut the fuck up.
So it's just like, hey, we're going to ask you 3 questions. It's like, and then it's pre-scripted. And one of them was, what's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? And so everybody, they had to stop and think about some of the other stuff, but everybody kind of knows what their favorite flavor of ice cream is. Right. And then you get through the morning slog of stuff, death by PowerPoint. They had lunch brought in, and then about a half an hour before lunch, somebody left and then came back and had everybody's favorite ice cream.
That's pretty fucking good.
Well, that's what we said.
Did they? Yeah, it was a
You
kickoff though, so
didn't.
they were already
You
hired. Were they already
Yeah,
hired?
it's all right. But I'm like, that's what I was saying. I'm like, you didn't have to do that,
Already had
but
the
I see
business
you.
too. That's
Like I see
so
you.
good. That's so
Right. And
good.
nobody, like when they were asking the question again, it was just kind of wrapped up in this icebreaker
Bing,
thing.
bing,
So
bing, bing,
nobody
bing.
even thought about it. It's just like some stupid question that, somebody was writing down going mint chocolate chip,
And then
Rocky
someone
Road.
emailed someone who placed the order, and then it just like that's
Brilliant,
good.
isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
really good. It's a
Yeah.
thing where I'm embarrassed to say this. For years, we always had a client appreciation budget. If it was like $1,000 a month, which honestly with like 30 clients is not that much money, but it's like you could send a little gift, and like at the end of every month it would be like, you have a week, you have $992 left in your thousand, because you really is like there's all these like cool things you want to do that get like shoved aside for existing clients, even because you just don't have the fucking time. You're like, fuck, I
Right.
need, like, gotta sleep. But like when it comes to pitches, that's why I ask, because that's when everyone sits down and goes, okay, like, what can we do here? And that's where we've always played around with, and I still do this. We play around with the team slides where we pitched a comic brand, and I had everyone give their favorite comic book, and our designer like put them with our
Nice.
picture. When I worked with Lego back in the day, we had our Lego minifigs of each of us, right? Like to kind of like show the connection to the brand. And we pitched, Jeff Allen will like this if he's listening. We pitched a pet insurance brand like 3 fucking times, 4 fucking times, and still never got the business over the course of like 2 years. They were kind of like, shit, will you finally help us? And then we go in, like, we're talking to 2 more agencies, but we had pictures of our pets, right? And I really wanted this brand because it was pet insurance. Everyone connects with it. And then also they had pictures of Cavalier King Charles Spaniels everywhere. And I was like, I want to work with this brand. And we like every time we thought we won it, but like the pitch magic wasn't very magical,
Yeah.
obviously.
I think like in your space, and again, like that last set of RFPs, everybody came in with some little connection to the brand. They all either went and got shoes, right? Or they spent a ton of time, or they said, well, hell, you guys did it. You guys did it in our original, maybe not the original pitch, but
Oh, I know where
when
you're going, I think.
the meeting I'm talking about,
Uh-huh.
where there was some social work that you guys weren't doing for us yet, and I think Vanessa went in
Vanessa Zavala.
and did basically like Instagram reels or TikTok reels in a store. You could tell it was one of our stores,
One of your
right?
people were like, that's the store in like Dallas.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
store 742.
yeah,
And yeah, she was back home visiting family and like went and did a mock-up reel.
yeah. That connected.
Yeah.
That connected all the way to the top of the totem pole, right?
Yeah.
So you have to assume that everyone else is going to be doing something like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of table stakes. But it's like the ice cream thing was such a personal
It's a nice
thing.
touch.
Everybody,
Yeah, it's a good touch.
no one remembered what shoes anybody had on.
Yeah, it's a fastball down the middle to talk about the shoes or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, right.
I also remember one of the pitches that I was in where we pitched to you where someone, and this was unscripted, someone like kind of like at the very end was like, hey, like I know your brand really well. They told like a really touching story about how they were very familiar with the brand because they fit the demo. It was nearby, and it was like a connection to their family to when their mom would take them to shop for shoes. And it was a
Right.
totally off the cuff, like great story that kind of resonated because it was in line with the 3.5 hour conversation about here's where our customer lives. And then someone at the very end was like, hey, I'm that customer, and here's a story, which I thought was pretty cool. On the other side of that coin, what is like a pitch that where someone just absolutely biffed it? Because you have to feel bad because you're vetting them. You bring them in, you bring all the bosses in, and they're like, so shoes, right? Like,
I was really shocked. Again, I'm not going to mention the agency, but we brought in the last time we
yeah,
fired you.
like
I would say I won't say the last time. The most recent time that I
the
fired
day
you.
is young, Kent. Mm.
Yeah, we brought in who we thought were just heavy hitters. Like these guys, if they bring their B team in, based on what we knew they did, they're going to jump to the top. And 20 minutes in, my boss and I were texting each other. What the fuck?
Huh.
Like it it couldn't get any worse. At that point, we're like, well, it can't get any worse than this. Maybe this person who's responsible for pitching a pretty important part of the agenda is just having a bad day, right? And then it
Yeah.
goes to the next person and it's like, nope, that's not the case.
Mm.
It's hard to tank. I mean, you're there to win a pretty decent chunk of business. If it's meaningful business to you, it's really hard to fuck that up, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the ones that, like, again, the bigger agencies where, maybe and we were trying to figure it out, like, well, maybe they came in and just felt like they were column fodder, like they had no chance at it. And, hey, we have Disney and we have all these massive
Yeah.
brands.
You're small to
What's a
them, maybe.
little what's a little shoe carnival and their, whatever budget, what's that going to do for us? And I don't know. Right. So we really didn't know what was behind that, other than the fact that it was just, it's like when you're interviewing and, I do this. I know I'm not the only person that does this. I know within 10 minutes of interviewing someone, whether I'm going to remotely be interested in hiring you. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like
It's true.
a 2 hour pitch where, 15 minutes into it, you're like, I don't think they can pull. I don't think they can pull out of this dive.
Yeah. We look for these. When these come out,
Oh yeah.
that's when we know, like, okay, shit, dead air. Like, when's, do we have a showstopper? Right?
Or you see obvious back channeling within the meeting, like maybe the phones are out, maybe it's just a laptop, but
uh-huh.
somebody starts reacting, smiling, smirking, giggling to what they're reading. That's probably not a great sign.
No, or also, and this is always, you never know, but this is a coin flip. But when the CEO or the decision maker in the room is like, "All right, everyone, I gotta jump. I have a hard stop here. I gotta leave the room," and
Yeah,
you're like an hour into a 2 hour pitch, and you're like,
yeah, yeah. He's not engaged. I do have I think the most memorable pitch, and it wasn't necessarily a performance agency when we were at Finish Line. So one of the really cool things we did at Finish Line back in the day, nobody was doing it, but we decided to do like ship from store and BOPUS. We're like, people will want to come into the store and pick things up, and all of our inventory's in our stores. So why wouldn't we ship from those stores? But nobody knew how to do it. So I got this cold email, cold call, cold email, I don't know, from a company called Found. And that company, one of the founders of the Found was Steve Young, football player, Steve Young.
"There's a quarterback." Yeah.
Yeah. So they had no customers. They were talking to one other customer, BB, in the mall, I think. And they're like, we want to come in and pitch. But this is pretty important. It's pretty cool. We're a startup. We're as startup as startups get. And we want to come in and pitch you guys. I'm like, okay, great. And then so the day they were supposed to come in, I got a call from from our receptionist at the front, who was awesome. She's like, there are some people here to see you. So I'm like, okay. So I send one of my guys down to get him. We go into the room and they come up the stairway. There's Steve Young
At the pitch,
at the pitch.
Steve
At the
Young.
pitch. There's three of them, and one of them is Steve Young. So
Steve Young sat in the whole pitch.
yeah, he's in there, and I was like, fuck, I got to get our CEO in here. Like I
Yeah,
was not prepared for
yeah. Steve Young.
I was not prepared for Steve Young. So we get we're scrambling, go find the admin. We got to get Alan in here, and we're hanging out. And Alan comes in for a little bit. They do their pitch, say their things, and then we get down into the nitty gritty. And Steve's really not saying anything.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Steve didn't have slides.
No, he didn't have a part of the deck.
No talk track for Steve
But he was
Young.
but he was vigorously writing and doing, on notepad. And it gets towards the end, and I kind of stand up a little bit and look over at what he was writing down.
I love where this is going.
You can probably guess what it was. He
Was it
was writing football
football
plays.
plays? It was football plays.
Yeah, he was just doodling. Had nothing to do. Now,
Still, he got on the plane. He flew out. He sat in the room. Like, what more do you want, Steve Young?
Yeah, he was great. And we ended up working with them. We had breakfast with him in San Francisco after we were clients for a bit. But it was certainly memorable. Like, okay, I guess you can get away with that when you're, Hall of Famer.
Get a Hall of Fame Super Bowl winning quarterback to sit on your pitch. That probably trumps the ice cream, to be honest. Yeah. This is go to I'll have to reach deep into the bag for that. I wonder what Joe Montana's up to. Get the Notre Dame connection. When he's not selling Guinness, I can get Joe. So I wanted to talk a bit about when you work with agencies, because you've worked with a lot of agencies. There's this, you're kind of in like this weird floating Ethereum sometime of like, there's big teams on both sides, the agendas every week, you meet sometimes 2-3 times a week. You don't know if you're delivering what they want to hear. You're trying to get feedback. And we always used to, when you were in the room, you were always really good about giving context. And I think that's one of the, again, great quality you have of like, hey folks, like, we're talking around this, but like, I think part of it was you were just done with it. Like at the meeting, you're like, hey, we're talking around it, but like, here's what we really want. What's like
romancing the problem.
Yeah. And I mean, we get two teams in the room, you tend to belabor the fuck out of the point. Along those lines, what are like 1 to 2 really great things that agencies you worked with do once they have the business and you're working with them every week that like, you're like, this is fucking refreshing?
I think the number one thing that I think that agencies that have excelled for us do is they perform under imperfect conditions, right? Because when things are great and things just click, and like when you've exited from a client, those aren't the things that are on your tombstone. It's like, well, they didn't do this, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do this.
Yeah.
So the reason that you're even in the building is because things are imperfect with that customer, right? Otherwise, they'd do it themselves. They'd figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
They'd plug in AI anymore. So when shit gets hairy, right? When things aren't going well, it's the agencies, I think, that the best agencies thrive in those conditions. And right, because there's a million agencies out there.
50,000.
Did you just make that number up, or
no?
Is
there's no. Jeff sent me a study. There's 50,000 agencies.
Right.
It's a ton.
Right.
It's literally a million when you come to like agents. 50,000 agencies. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes down to, why do we pick an agency? Yes, you have to show that you're capable of doing the work, right? You have to, have other clients that you've done similar work for, right? You have to do all this. But at the end of the day, from a retail perspective, I'm just talking retail, right? It's just chaotic as shit. And you have to have someone who thrives in that environment and performs when things aren't great.
Yeah.
That to me is the number one. And the other one's like, any partner or agency we've ever worked with, you have to feel vested in our business, like in our success, right? And I think that's what makes them a partner and not just a vendor, right? Or an agency. And I think you guys were partners.
Yeah.
In our business. In other words, we're locked arms, we're going down the same path, and you understand the challenges and we understand the challenge, but we're looking to you guys to be the subject matter experts and deliver on this thing that we don't have the skill sets for.
Yeah. There's honestly, we did this once where we were brought back in with you and had a conversation about that was unrelated to what we were managing day to day. But your first instinct is like, why are we catching strays over this shit, right? But the reality is, it means we're all in this together. So like, bring everyone in, and what does this team have to say about a problem that they don't touch, that maybe they can provide some valuable input on, or help kind of dress the wounds on, that moves us forward, which I think is good perspective that you gave me, that helped me frame it with the team, that got everyone fired up about going into the room with the right intentions, versus like, wait, we're coming in for what? And I think that's part of like that good partnership piece, in that even if you, and this is something that is like, even if we don't do it, and you still get the look from the team, because I'm doing this now, we don't manage a channel, but the channel, we've identified areas where we think we could help. We're going to do a complimentary audit. And the client was like, hey, that's cool. Really, really amazing. Thank you. They don't have to do shit. It's not a sales pitch. We're not putting it in a deck. Literally an audit, sharing a spreadsheet, going to share it with them. I'm like, here's what we found. Please just like push them if you need to, figure out a way to fix it. But like my blind zebra, who's the sales trainers that we've used for years, Hannapin, I'm still with them. Brian Neal does a great thing where he's like, if your intentions are pure, you're clean. Like you
Right.
cannot go into it needing the sale. You have to just be a helpful partner and good shit will come back to you, which is also part of like where a lot of agencies get it wrong, where they look agency out versus client in. And they're like, they sit down and they go, we're not doing this for that client. How do we sell it to them? And it's like, well, like, do they fucking need it? Like,
Right.
does it really help
Right.
their business? Or are you just trying to like drive this line in your forecast up?
And I vividly remember the meeting you're talking about,
It was a doozy.
which you guys performed, just went over the top on. And I think, yeah, there was a few ways you could have reacted to that environment, right? But at the end of the day, you can't control potential misalignment internally at a client. Like, right? You don't know. I mean, hell, there were people in the own business who didn't even know exactly what I did. They kind of knew what I did, but they'd be like, "Do I talk to you about this?" So there's no way in hell they knew exactly what you guys were doing, right?
Yeah.
But it was great. You turned that into a beautiful opportunity, I think, to say, "Okay, look, this is bigger than the original scope, but we've got to rally and we've got to try to communicate what our capabilities are around all this."
Yeah.
But again, I think that showed you guys did it from a position of, hey, we understand these are challenges to the business and we've had less than 36 hours to figure this shit out, but based on what we know about your business, this is what we think you should do.
Yeah. There's the guardrails are pretty far apart as long as they're acknowledged. So you can like there's freedom in that. You can walk into the conversation as long as you frame it as, and I think I said it 42 times in that meeting. We had like 3 days to prep. A lot of this shit's going to be like, what? But like, if we can find one or two things, and like, that's where like it goes back to the creativity piece of like, there's no wrong answer. We've already got this business. We really can only strengthen the partnership if we do things the right way and do our due diligence and acknowledge and set the right framework for half of this, 3/4 of this might be garbage or stuff that you're already doing. Last question, I'll leave you with this. Retail's taking it in the teeth right now. It's really tough out there. If you were CEO of a large retail brand, hired in tomorrow, what would you do? What's top of your list to set yourself apart, right the ship, aside from going back in time to 1987 and making malls a thing again?
I would probably, if they don't know who their customer is at a forensic level, I would find out. I would put a tiger team on that and I would say, come back to me and tell me exactly who our customer is. Tell me how many different customers we have and help me understand how do we get more of them, right now growth is just, it's tough. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are some exceptions out there, I think, where retailers are growing, but it's hard, right? I mean, there's so much macro bullshit that's distracting consumers from their normal lives. It's hard to get their attention, right? Unless you
Yeah.
guys are it's your job to help get my brand in front of the customer in a meaningful way. Well, if you don't know who the customer is, how are you going to do that? But, because we've seen, you just look out on on LinkedIn or wherever, and you see, it's like, hey, I just saw an example where somebody just cut half of their Google spend. We're not sure this is working, so they just turned it off as a way to do some sort of incrementality
This is a
test.
giant
Like,
test. Yeah.
well, interesting, or just like, I don't believe marketing is working. Oh well, like, look, at the end of the day, I know how my family uses technology, their devices. I feel like I know where we would need to be from a brand standpoint. It's
Yep.
just how do you do it in a meaningful way and a lasting way, and something that tries to get them in the store or get them to the website or what.
It's fascinating because it goes back to, like you said, knowing, if you know your customer, then you can figure out where your customer is, whether they're on, like, what platforms they use. Like, you can track
Right.
all of that through audience intelligence. And I saw a reel like 2 nights ago about shoe company, New Balance, who were, and this might be total bullshit because it was a reel. No way, there was no footnote on it, but that they were the dad brand, the white New Balances, and they weren't
Oh
cool for
yeah.
years and down forever. And
Barbecue shoes.
yep, they brought in a new CMO, and to that point, they were a heavy discount brand, just trying to drive sales. 70% was like really pushing discounts, and 30% was on brand. And the new CMO flipped it overnight and said 70% into influencer and into social media and really just showcasing the shoes, and 30% on discounting and selling the brand more than selling the shoes more than discounting. And for like 18 months, they tanked, which is hilarious because I think, and this was years ago, I think the average tenure of a CMO is something like 14 to 16 months.
Right. Right.
For 18 months they tanked, and then month 19 it was up, and they've been up and to the right ever since. It's no longer a dad brand that is out of fashion.
I'll give you a great example of what I think is you wouldn't do if you're in that position. A great friend of mine was chief digital officer for Solo stoves, so
Mm-hmm.
the outdoor stoves. And I don't know if you remember this. It was probably 3 years ago, maybe. I don't know if that's the right. I don't know if that's the right period of time. But they did a they had a partnership with Snoop, and it kind of came and it kind of the campaign kind of came out of nowhere. On Friday he basically posted a reel, TikTok, everywhere you can imagine, that he's going smokeless, because
Mm-hmm.
I've discussed this with my family.
I remember
And then
this.
so for the next 3 days, like over the weekend, it's all anybody can, like, I'm texting, I'm sharing it. And then on Monday there's the follow-up, right, saying, yeah, I'm going smokeless, and he's kicked back, and it's a smokeless stove. And then, like, at the end of that clip, he gives this look to the camera, like, "You idiots!" I'm not going to stop smoking weed, right? I'm pretty sure they fired that CMO in less than 6 months. I'm like, what did you think was going to happen from it? Was a great campaign. Everybody talked about it. Like, they did victory laps over that,
But how many
right?
stoves? Yeah.
How many, like, CEOs like, well, we didn't sell any stoves. It's I think the big challenge, right? It's getting the brand, again, getting your brand in front of the consumer in a way that they'll remember. I'm talking about it 3 years ago, and just because I'm in the business doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know them, right? But I'm wondering if maybe the executive team there had misaligned expectations on what great brand marketing does versus what performance marketing
Yeah.
does. Like what was your KPI for, what did you think was going to
Like direct
happen when you
response.
spent all
Yeah.
that money?
Like they were looking for the number to go up immediately versus
Right.
building a brand, because particularly that brand is a luxury purchase. People don't have to
Hmm.
buy them. People have fire pits. There's like, they didn't know their customer. They probably didn't know. They could have done some audience intelligence from get a little bit clearer picture of, when someone knows our brand, here is the lagging indicator that they're eventually going to purchase one. Because I'm guessing they're expensive. I don't have one. I have a fire pit. It's Indiana. It's the Midwest.
I bought one. During COVID.
And a good friend of mine has one. They love it.
Yeah,
It's like,
they're awesome.
they're fantastic, but it's not an item that you go, oh, cool ad, let me go buy one. And it's also not an item like a cool ad that's like shoes. You're eventually always going to buy shoes. So when you say, I need a new pair of shoes, let me go look at them because of that
Right.
ad.
Right.
A stove, and also, like, what's their, I mean, they sell one. I mean, does the average person buy 1.3 stoves? Like, it's,
And they have other shit. They have
yeah,
other, they have
yeah.
a little grill attachment. They have three different sizes. They have a little one you can take camping. They have a big one for your
So
backyard.
then there also plays into the, like, what's the next step
Right.
after the big ad? Like,
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm sure Snoop wasn't cheap, but and you could have given enough runway, right? They could have bolted on to that in a way that kept it kind of playful, and didn't have the gotcha aspect to it. But
yeah. Well, that's when people feel like, oh, you fucking got me. Fuck them. What was it again? I don't care. Because people start to worry
right,
that they look like an idiot. Anyway.
yeah.
Kent, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. Fantastic stories. Great to catch up.
Great to catch up with you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you again real soon.
Of course we will.
Awesome.
All right.
See you.
Thanks, buddy.